Fox News senior correspondent Benjamin Hall. All right, so Benjamin, you've survived wars. What does your gut tell you?
You know, Jesse, it's fascinating to watch this right now. The whole world is watching what President Trump is about to do, and just seeing him standing at the White House earlier on, keeping everyone guessing, not making that move too quickly is fascinating. Look, I think it's fair to say that there are incredible pros for hitting that nuclear site and incredible cons as well. The pros you laid out earlier. Look, you get rid of Iran's nuclear facility. That the US is the only country that can do that. That perhaps leads to a change in regime. As you said, the country is falling apart. People are striking. People can't afford to live. That could change the whole Middle East. With President Trump's relationships with Saudi Arabia and Israel, if the Iranian regime was to fall, you could change the region. You could pull them away from China, pull them away from Russia. It could be a geopolitical shock if that were to happen. It would be a seismic change. On the other hand, there are potential real negatives, and that is down to how Iran will respond. Look, if Iran was to go after American embassies, American ships, American bases, and Americans were killed, it would quickly lead to escalation. America would have to get involved further and further. If they shut the Straits of Hormuz, the oil prices rise. If they use their countless terror proxies around the world, we could see an outbreak. So President Trump right now is balancing the two. But even if the US didn't want to get involved with this before Israel started, the thinking is that if Iran is now given a chance, they will rush for a bomb. It is the only way they can do so. The delays on their nuclear program at the moment may be around 2 years. It'll be 5+ years if that facility is hit, and that is a big difference. And so President Trump, mulling this up, do you stand alongside your ally Israel, or do you perhaps pull back and hope for some diplomatic way of this finishing? That, it appears, is not likely, and many people feeling it won't be long till the president makes the decision to perhaps go after Fordo nuclear base.
Benjamin, could you see a scenario where we did use the bunker busters on Fordo and the Ayatollah stayed in power?
Look, it's a fascinating question. This is the big question. I think everyone knows that regime change is not going to come forcefully, that you have to put in place that to happen domestically inside Iran. And those things are already happening. But look, they've taken away the leadership of the military. And many people say, yes, the Ayatollah is the supreme leader, but actually it is the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard. They're the ones that have controlled the country. If you take those out, and many of them have already been gone, if you take out the Ayatollah or some of the mullahs, which Israel might do, then that leaves a huge vacuum. But the question is, who fills the gap? There is no real opposition leader in Iran at the moment. You know, in Russia, you had the Navalny. Well, Russia killed Navalny, and they've done the same in Iran. They have killed all the opposition leaders. And so who could lead the way after that? You have the Shah's son, who lives in Virginia, Reza Pahlavi, who is supporting the Israeli moves. And he is saying he would come to Iran, he would bring them towards democracy. But again, many Iranians outside Iran support him, many Iranians inside Iran, not so much. They don't like the idea of a king. So who fills the gap? Does it become another hardline militant, or does it become democracy? And again, another big question, in which direction Iran would go.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to accept the Shah's son. That's probably not something that they're going to stomach. But would it be better if there was just kind of a hard-line military guy that kind of kept the country together, but he was defanged, limited ballistic missiles? The Iranian National Guard wasn't playing any games outside the borders, and the nuclear facilities were completely decimated?
I mean, it's hard to see someone in the military who could play that role. I've spoken to so many Iranians over the last week, people inside Iran. It is the military that they can't stand. If there's going to be a change, a positive change, it has to be away from the military. So no, I'm not certain that's the case. I think that it would have to be the people rising up. You know, in 2009, we saw the Green Revolution, hundreds of thousands of people on the streets. We saw it in 2022, hundreds of thousands of people on the streets. There is a movement in Iran. 80% of the country want change. You look back to pre-1979, you saw this democratic move, not democratic, it was under the Shah, but you saw a freedom movement where people at least had some sort of free say. So, no. It can't seem to be a military leader that's going to take over.
Yeah, but Benjamin, you hear things like the freedom, and you hear things like, the people are going to rise up. And we've seen this before. I mean, a lot of the times it could take never It could take decades, and you could just have a power vacuum where the people with the guns have the power and the people without the guns have nothing. And then you're looking at a failed state. That's obviously something to consider.
Well, it is. And if you look at who's running Syria at the moment, it's Shara, who himself was at one point working alongside al-Qaeda. And sometimes those perhaps are the people who fill in, who come in. We don't know who those people are in Iran because the opposition has been so silenced. But yes, does it become a failed state after this? Well, I would argue it is already a failed state. It is a totally failed state. So would the opportunity of bringing in another military leader, would perhaps be the opportunity of bringing in one of the current diplomats who has worked, liaising with the US over the last few years? Would that be a better option? We don't know. But I think it comes down to the fact that right now the decision has to be made on whether or not Iran can build a nuclear weapon, whether it's on that path. Right. You can look time and time again about what comes next, but unless you deal with that initial issue, that initial problem, which the IAEA, they said Iran was breaking all the rules just 2 weeks ago. Iran themselves said that they were opening a third enrichment site just 1 week ago. It is heading in that direction. And yes, you can try and look at all the paths that lie ahead, but sometimes you have to make the move if it's going to prevent them from getting that bomb.
We're only looking ahead, Benjamin, because the president's already decided. He said, you're not having a nuclear program. We're either going to do it violently or you're going to let us in and we're going to just do it peacefully. But either way, it's gone. That's why we're looking ahead. Benjamin Hall, great to see you. And everybody check out his book. It's a real page turner. We love it. Thank you again.